In this video, I'm going to be discussing training in general, and we'll also touch on learnerships for people who are interested in knowing more about learnerships and how they work. Credit goes to one of my previous managers who cleverly summarized the reasons why companies train in South Africa. One of the reasons why somebody would train is to claim a portion of their skills levy back. Now, as an employer, by now you know that you pay 1% of total annual payroll, you pay over as a skills development levy to the receiver of revenue. So claiming your mandatory grant back means you can claim a percentage of your skills levy back. Now, I'm not going to say what the percentages are at this stage, because I would like the video to stay relevant for as long as possible. So use the resources at the time to get the most accurate percentages that you can get back. Another reason why you would also train for that reason is because you want to claim discretionary funding or discretionary grants. And there it's open to the sector education and training authorities' discretion as to what skills are needed within the industry as stipulated in their sector skills plan, and they then decide what is most important and where the numbers will go in terms of training. In the meat industry, for example, the butcher skill, the butcher and the meat processor skill is a scarce and critical skill. Now, it's critical because we need it for the industry. It's also scarce because you can't find it, and it makes it even more so. It's almost a dying industry, because I'm in my late 30s, and behind me there are not many new entrants into the industry who actually stay in it for a number of years. I started in the industry, I left it on a full-time basis, but I was still involved on a part-time basis, and then came back into the industry. And I've noticed over the last couple of years that my peers are much older than me. Some of them are even over retirement age, and they're still working, but they won't be able to work forever. So we've got this huge skills gap in the meat industry, and that's why we need to train people. That's why we need to make sure that people are certified. And as a business, we've decided to start from scratch. The coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic really did a number on all the economies all over the world. And as a small business, we were not excluded from the disaster that hit. So to get back to the reasons why companies train would be to claim their skills levies back. Another reason would be for BE purposes, or broad-based Black economic empowerment purposes. This is unique to the South African environment. As companies, in order to claim BEE points, one of the things that you need to do is you need to train your people. And another reason would then be for training would be to make people more productive, to make them, it's the softer side of it, the more HR feel-good reason why you would train. I want them, like I said, productivity. I want to make sure that they stay on longer in the business, that type of scenario. The last reason, it's no particular order, is for legislative purposes. So it's mandatory training that you have to do. It's written into law, and occupational health and safety is one of those critical areas where you need to do training. First aid, firefighting, training on dangerous equipment, forklift training, working at heights, all of those types of training, it's all legislated. And as an employer, you have to train people on what is legislated as a minimum requirement. So once again, credit to Greg. Thank you so much for everything that you've taught me, and it brilliantly summarized the reasons why companies train. And it's one of those scenarios where if we don't train our people, our industry is busy dying down, and it's critical. So it's one of those tough things where, and I understand that a lot of employers don't want to train, because for the most part, if you train a person, they leave. It's true to a certain extent, but it also depends on how you treat the person, how they feel within your employer. I know of people who have moved across the country for 50 or 100 rand a month more. They would move from a small town to a big city. Their expenses are 3 times as high as what they used to be, but they will move for 50 and 100 rand more, because sometimes they just don't feel like they are being valued. And it's time for us to start treating our people as assets. And if you like your vehicle, although it's an asset and it's not, but your company vehicle, the one that you use for your deliveries, if you don't maintain it, it becomes a liability. If it breaks down, if it's unreliable, your staff works on exactly the same principle. If you don't maintain your staff, if you don't look after them, if you don't train them, if you don't develop them, the same thing is going to happen. They are going to leave as much as your vehicle is going to break. And one of the reasons, or one of the most effective ways of training people and to get new entrants into the industry is to make use of something called learnerships. Learnerships is essentially an occupational training program. So you can train your employed people, so the people currently in your employ, you can train them whilst they're working, and you can put them through the basis qualification is a national certificate. So you can give them a certificate. It's nationally, and some of them are even internationally recognized, and it's one of those, everybody wants some form of education. And the chances are that if you put a person through a program like that, they'll stay on for longer if you also holistically treat them correctly. You can also train unemployed people, and unemployed people, it's a bit of a tough one, and I'm going to make a separate video on the challenges of training unemployed people, because there's so much that needs to be covered. But you get an unemployed person in, the basis of it, you get an unemployed person in who doesn't have any skills or any knowledge, you pull them in, and you essentially have an extra pair of hands within your organization that you don't necessarily have to pay for. If you, for example, claim or apply for a discretionary grant to train an unemployed person, the Sector Education and Training Authority, or the SETA, will pay the learner's stipend. And that means that if you want to, you can top it up. If you don't want to, if you can't, you don't have to. But that's the minimum that the learner will get. And this is the money that they need to use for transport and food and so on. But you then essentially get a new pair of hands in. You can start them from scratch. And I understand the challenges around that. And like I said, I'll discuss it in a separate video. But you get to mold a person, a new person, to do exactly what you want or need them to do. And at the same time, you also, over a long period of time, you've got the opportunity to interview that person and decide whether you want to keep that person on post-qualification or not. Alternatively, you can just keep rolling the learners, because there's such a shortage of qualified people that the good people are being swept up before they even know it. So that's, in short, the 4 reasons why companies train, and that's why, as an employer, you also need to get involved in training. As much as a lot of people don't want anything to do with the government, there are measures and systems in place where you, as an individual and as a small business, can benefit from what's been put in place. So don't just knock everything. Have a look at what's available. If you want more information, get in touch with us, and let's see how we can help you.